Welcome on in to this week's edition. It's a volatile. I think the word I would use to describe this week's edition of Trust the Process Live. We had dreams crushed. We had dreams pulled out from the gutter, and some. I don't want to say long term, but some future dreams that we will start endeavoring on later. Yes, we're talking about the Eagles' schedule. It's myself in the host chair today, replacing James Hyden, the man with 80 jobs, but from the man with 80 jobs to the guy with what? How many digits we at now, Mr. Max Coolish? How are we doing?
28, man. 28 as of yesterday. I just feel even
Golly.
older. You're complaining about graduating from college, and Makai's even younger than you. And I'm old. I'm getting old, man. Fuck.
28 digits. Is that the number that kind of like did it for you? Because for me, like hearing that, I'm like, oh wow, like 27 sounds better. You could have died
Yeah, it
last year.
does. 27 does sound better. It's weird that you mentioned that because you're 100% right. I don't know. I feel like I was able to take in stride because it feels like the last couple of weeks have just really dragged on for me. So I feel like this happened in actuality like 2 months ago, but it happened yesterday.
Yeah, man, 27, it's like, oh, you're in your 20s. 28 is like, oh, 30
Late
like
20,
30
late
Eve.
20. I'm officially late 20s. No other way to slice it or dice it.
Celebrated night at Chima.
Oh yeah, you know I'm always a sucker for a good cut of red meat, Josh.
There we go. That's free advertisement here on Trust the Process Live.
For our old friends.
From one guy who some are saying are washed, not me. Some are saying, not me. To another guy who they're calling the budding young star around here, Makai Strong. Kai, what's happening, man? Just finished the semester. You know, you're just getting into the schooling.
I'm just getting into it. About to be a sophomore next year. So it's crazy. And you just graduated. Oh,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I just graduated.
Josh, you'll always be old to somebody.
You got three guys from different walks of life here, all with a lot of pain in their hearts from Philadelphia Athletics. However, 19, 22, 28 don't matter. We've seen the Phillies World Series like ancient history. We've seen one championship in recent memory. It's been full of pain, and no pain fresher than the pain we just experienced last Thursday. It was a two-parter. The Tuesday into Thursday pain was just a awful 1-2 combo. I know, Kai, you said Heat and 5. I'm pretty sure it was Heat and 6. You weren't too far off. I had Sixers and 7, and so did Max. For all intents and purposes, you had Sixers and 7. Wow, did we get
context? I got it right, but
yeah, I guess. But come on, the real ones know you would.
No. I can't back down. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah. So listen, fellas, we were pretty high up. Kai, I know you weren't here last week, but we were high up last week, and like understandably so. I mean, there was a lot to be high on. It's disaster mode, and it just feels like every freaking year it's the same thing. There's nowhere from these playoffs I think that we can really look and be like, well, at least X, right? Like I don't feel that way. So I think that like we do every year, the question is, where do you go from here? So for you two gentlemen, I want to lay out 3 different options, 3 different paths you can go down. Put on your Harris Blitzer cap and go down these 3 options. You can either A, fire Glenn Rivers, try a new coach, and, more or less run it back, let the chips fall where they may. B, less emphasis on Doc Rivers. You get rid of James Harden, replace him. That's your first order of business. Or C, blow the whole damn thing up. I'm talking you get everyone out of here, not named Joel Embiid. I mean, Maxi's sort of safe, but like that's not. I'm talking about blowing the whole damn thing up and trying to start from scratch. So Kai, I'm gonna come to you here. I'm really curious what you have to say. I know you. I know. I'm thinking you want Glenn out, but I want to know if you're going to go farther than that, Kai. What are you thinking?
All right, so we can't do option C. That's out of the question. You can't waste Joel Embiid's prime years trying to rebuild around him. It's too late. He's right there at the peak of his prime. You can't rebuild around that. It's too late. I feel as though Doc Rivers is a problem, but it also falls back onto your players. So I think the option is you got to get rid of James Harden. I feel as though that's the safest option to get rid of James Harden. He lost his step. I feel as though you can go out there and get Bradley Beal, has more of a step than James Harden. Bradley Beal and a bunch or other role players that's not just regular role players, higher role players that can do the job as efficiently as James Harden, if more than one person, if that makes sense. Multiple role players that do James Harden's one job.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And, you don't have to look too far back in Sixers history to see this team go as far with role players. But all right, I'm kind of surprised, Mekhi. I thought maybe you would go down the road of maybe Glenn or blowing it up. So Digits, I'll come to you, man. Are you going extreme, or are you just focusing on Harden instead of anyone else?
Honestly, no. I'm not focusing on Harden because I'll say this, right? Like, there seems to be this thing with NBA players where if they ever get like a couple of months to actually get their body right, they can look like totally different guys. Chris Paul, maybe not the best, playoff performing example of this, but he's someone in recent years who after insisting that he was hurt, and granted, Chris Paul did have to kind of change the lifestyle a little bit, which I do think James Harden needs to do. Like, clearly it's been a couple years running where it's the reports going into the NFL season as James Harden is showing up not looking great. So I think he's maybe past the point where he's 26, 27 and can blow, can overcome all of his long nights in Vegas and Miami with his normal routine. With that being said, for me, it starts with Glenn Rivers. Like, we're not excusing him for all of his shortcomings just because I'll be honest, in the last two games of the Heat series, I actually don't think it was on him. Those players looked like they would have lost if Red Auerbach and Greg Popovich were the two main coaches on the Sixers team. Like, they had no chance. Quite honestly, we probably would have lost to the Charlotte Hornets 2 games in a row if with the energy and the effort that I saw in those games. I'm just calling it how I see it, man. Like, who the Sixers have beaten two games in a row in games 5 and 6 with the performances that they gave? Nobody. Like, basically nobody. Like, and to me, I don't think this was the most egregious case of Doc Rivers being Doc Rivers was this playoff series, but I saw enough of it this year. We saw it coming all year that the backup options after Andre Drummond were very, very inadequate. And obviously when they traded Andre Drummond, that really became exacerbated, like how clear and how evident that was. And then he doubled and tripled down on the anti-Paul Reed and he wasn't really explicitly anti-Charles Bassey, but Bassey never got played. And instead he chose to stick with guys like Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan when it was very evident that was going to bite us. And what happened? We had no chance in 2 games on the road because we didn't have Embiid. And to me, that kind of falls onto the coach. And he had guys playing in the playoffs. Paul Reed played more minutes in the playoffs than he did in the regular season this year, almost.
Yeah.
Like total number of minutes, which is it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers to think about.
And I mean, real quick, Max, I mean, just to cut in here, like, I think something that's been lost a little bit in this Paul Reed discussion is like exactly what you're saying, where it's like, I don't know, maybe if you actually gave him some run. I mean, Paul Reed played for the Blue Coats, I think, more than he played for the actual 76ers during the regular season.
I think so.
Why is it then in the regular season you're not testing it out so that, to your point, Max, this exact thing isn't happening? Because he didn't look great, right? And we're the Paul Reed victory tour guys right here, but there were moments where he really didn't look great. You have to wonder, right? Like, if only he was able to work out those kinks during the regular season. But
only he learned how to defend without fouling in the regular season.
Exactly.
So I'll finish up with this, right? For me, this starts with Doc Rivers leaving. I think a great spot to look would be on the bench. I'm sure you guys have seen it float, that fun little, not so fun tidbit that 3 Sixers assistant coaches in the last 7 years have left the Sixers and gone to the NBA Finals after, kind of being passed up for guys in front of them. So I'll say, this starts with Doc Rivers needing to go. I will give him credit for ultimately increasing Joel Embiid's level of individual play. Embiid became a much better player under Doc Rivers, and he became a better player than he probably ever would have been under Brett Brown. With that being said, Doc Rivers is, I don't even want to say he's maybe one of the worst coaches in the current NBA in terms of in-game adjustments and how to structure lineups together, because we saw it all year. We saw all these insane fourth quarter leads get put in jeopardy, and some were lost because of his refusal to put stars back out there when things were getting leaky with his bench, or vice versa. Sometimes he would stick with his stars too long, and the whole reason you have a bench is that if your starters are not looking great, sometimes you just got to say, you know what, look, I need to give the green light to somebody on the bench. And this brings me to my last point. The Sixers have no bench scoring. To me, an ideal offseason is getting a new coach and getting a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who could be maybe like second layer attainable for the Sixers. But somebody who can come off the bench, who can
point.
alleviate the scoring burden on Harden, because Harden is not a 35-point-a-game scorer anymore. I still think Harden can be a really good point guard and can be a really good number 2, but I don't think it's fair to it would be insane to expect him to go back to averaging 28 plus points a game after what we saw this season. I don't think that James Harden's there anymore. But if you give me James Harden and his 16 to 20 minute a night backup who can combine for 45 to 50, that's when the Sixers team could become dangerous. And, we just had nothing off the bench. Like, Shake Milton was just too little too late. Shake Milton did everything he could in the second half of game 6 to try and keep it from being an embarrassment. And, maybe that's on Doc for not giving him more chances earlier on in the series, but we're never going to know. So to me, those are the two things that need to happen for the Sixers this offseason.
All right, so you're like a medium between Glenn and blowing it up, but you're not going.
Yeah, I think you're close. Like, I do think part of this team's issue is mental. And I do think that Doc Rivers is not the guy that you want to have. He's had plenty of playoff shortcomings in terms of individual games and overall series. So I definitely think that he is not the guy to get the Sixers over the seemingly second round mental hump that they have, because the talent always seems to be there. And it's always like, oh, Embiid is always questionable when it matters. But like, this Sixers team did everything they could, minus playing with energy and intensity the last 2 games of their season. And I know I said I don't want to harp on Doc Rivers too much for that, but ultimately that is a coach thing, man. Like, he was, this is the last thing I'll say. He was wired, he was mic'd up for that game 6, and it certainly felt like he was exacerbated by their lack of energy. Like, I didn't get the sense from him that he wasn't ready to come in and coach, but I totally got the sense that they were just like, damn, we're
want to play.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we got 2 different answers. I'm taking the third, fellas. I'm surprised neither of you said it. And Makai,
really? Okay.
I get what you're saying, because it's not your fault. It's all of our faults. When we hear blow it up, we think of the process, and that is not at all what I mean when I say blow it up. And I think this is the bottom line, gentlemen. You can put 4 guys around Joel Embiid and they're not going to be a bad team. Like, I really think that's the case. Like, I think Joel Embiid is really that good, where if you put 4 guys around him, they can still be good. But that's not what I'm saying about blowing it up.
2 of those guys are Ben Simmons and Al Horford. We've already seen that kind of thing not work.
Right.
I don't mean to make this into a joke, but I think that you're maybe overreacting a little bit to this, Josh. Like, this team very, very clearly has huge holes, but second year in a row they made it to the second round of the Eastern Conference. You're right. A couple pieces away, but realistically, how would you make this team better if you just decided to totally nuke it besides Embiid and Max? Because we both know they're going to be here. We both know that those 2 are in the plan for next year.
Well, is it 4? You said 2 years in a row making the second conference. This is 4 or 5 years in a row where you've made the playoffs and you just do nothing, right? Like, because you can look at it that way, but I'm looking at it since the first year they made the playoffs with Joel to now. And every damn year, this team has had new ownership. It's had new coaches. It's had new general managers. It's had everything. And it's just been the same damn result of not even getting past the second round, Max. And you can look at it from one way and say, well, they're always a contender and they've always made it to the second round. I'm looking at it the other way, saying this is so obviously their ceiling. Like, how many times do they need to get knocked down in the second round to tell you that they just don't have the groundwork and the infrastructure to be an elite team? And I think you are seeing it across the NBA right now, that there is a changing of the guard in the NBA, and you have to blow it up and do it the new way. I mean, look around. Look last night. Look at the Mavericks and Luka Doncic, right? And look, I will pat myself on the back for taking plus 235 money line Mavericks last night, because you look at that Suns team and you're betting on, and I don't want to slander Chris Paul, because first of all, he's faced more slander than he deserves today, and I don't want to slander the entire Suns, roster. But aside from Devin Booker and Michael Bridges, those guys are just there's kind of skeletons, and like, they got Ayton, they got Booker, they've got Bridges, they do have nice pieces, but come on, man, JaVale McGee was only going to get you so far. Chris Paul could only turn back the clock so many times. LeBron was out of the playoffs, right? Like, this older regime of the NBA is gone. And while the Sixers are more or less a younger team, Glenn Rivers is a big part of that older regime. Guys like Danny Green is a big, like, the fact that Danny Green was, the Sixers were riding or dying with Danny Green, it tells you everything you need to know. Furkan Korkmaz getting into the game. Like, You just need to blow up that entire roster. You need to blow up Glenn Rivers. I'd love to blow up the ownership too, but I mean, that's not an opportunity. That's not an option. It's just so glaringly obvious that replacing Furkan Korkmaz with this piece or giving Harden another year, like that's not going to do anything, man. The Bucks aren't going anywhere. The Heat aren't going anywhere. The Celtics sure as hell aren't going anywhere. Like you need to absolutely change this entire team aside from Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And honestly, fellas, I would love to keep Maxey, but if Maxey catches a stray bullet here on a complete reform, I hate to say it, but I kind of feel like so be it. That's not what I want to do, but I just can't imagine a scenario where this team has success where you don't blow it up. And that, I want to let you two respond, but it does bring us into our next topic here, which is what exactly do they need to improve? So first of all, Max, your brow was furrowed. Do you have a rebuttal?
I don't know. I kind of think you're stretching the argument thin in a lot of ways because to me, one great example that pops up is the Celtics have had a similar core of like 6 or 7 guys for a couple years, like that team that lost to Miami in the Eastern Conference Final in a bubble. And I do agree that we are kind of seeing a changing of the guard in the NBA, and I do think that you're correct, and you can't just rely on the guys who were the best players 5 years ago just to come in. But on the other hand, like this has been such an issue with the Sixers in the post process, like trying to be a serious basketball team thing. Every single year at the start of the year, we're coming in with a brand new roster. Like, do you remember, 2018 through 2020, it was all like, oh, the Sixers are super bang average because they need to figure out this new roster again and again and again. And the last few years, they finally kept a core and have shown, marginally better playoff performances. And granted, like we talked about, I clearly is this Sixers team when they got, put in the spotlight, we all saw what they were lacking. And I guess I'll just reiterate that I genuinely think if you can bring in a dynamic bench scorer, I really think that would alleviate a lot of this team's problems for both the starting unit and the bench unit. Like the bench can't be called on to score at really any point in time consistently. And the starters regularly find themselves kind of, playing hero ball. How many times during this playoff series did we see, the offense not really initiating until 7 or 8 seconds left because they're waiting for Embiid to get open in the post, and then it doesn't happen, and then it's either Harden or Maxey and doing everything they can with 5 seconds or less on the shot clock. And the Heat didn't need to respect anyone else because part of it's coaching, but part of it's roster construction. The Heat knew that as long as they survived that initial wave of Harden and Maxey and the Sixers starters having energy, they knew they'd pull away as soon as the 4-minute mark in the first quarter hit because their bench would dominate ours or whatever mixed lineup you have in terms of starters and first guys off the bench for starters and first guys off the bench. I think you put it really well. Like when Danny Green and Thibault are, well, like Danny Green starting, but when George Niang and Thibault are the first 2 guys off the bench in a playoff series, like you're the kiddie pool, man. You're so shallow. You have no chance in competing with a team like the Heat, who they're maybe guys 8 through 10 aren't that great on offense, but all of them play within their team. All of them played great defense, and they enabled their better players. And the Sixers just didn't do that. And I think a lot of that goes all the way back to Mr. 15 best coaches of all time.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So Kai, let me come to you here. I threw up blowing it up, but let's actually get into it here. We don't have to talk about blowing it up, but in your world, right? What are we looking for improvements? Like what? I don't know if you've got some names in mind specifically, or kind of like Max. Like I like that Jordan Clarkson, or just anyone who plays that role. There's not a lot of guys who play that role, like Tyler Hero, like the lethal, legitimate scorer that's going to come off your bench. But Kai, what are you thinking for improvements this offseason?
So what I'm looking at as improvements is I'm gonna start with the Sixers and then outside improvements. Inside of the Sixers, the improvements we need. Matisse has to shoot. He has to become a shooter.
I think he's gone. I'm not even wasting my breath on Matisse Thybulle anymore. He's a liability. He's like Andre Robertson from that Oklahoma, like the Durant and Russell Westbrook Oklahoma City teams. If anything, I think he's maybe worse than Andre Robertson at this point.
You can't have a player like that come on the bench and just have no offensive ability at all. You can't have someone like that on your team. So either he gets a better shot or you go out there and get a true 3-and-D player. I feel as though that's what the Sixers need on the bench. They need three. They need like 2 or 3 3-and-D players that can come off the bench, that can shoot the ball efficiently, that can play defense efficiently, and do both on both sides of the court. They need some more. They need another big man, or develop
100%.
Paul Reed, Something. Something has to give. Either develop Paul Reed or
You got to commit one way or another. I agree.
You got to commit. You can't go out there, sign a center, and then expect Paul Reed to be ready whenever you want to throw him in. You can't have both of those. And that's what the Sixers did. They went out there and got DeAndre Jordan. You see, but expected Paul Reed to play in the playoffs. You can't do that. You can't go out there and get someone like that and then expect your rookie or second-year player to come out and be a star. So I feel though, Max is right. It goes back to Glenn Rivers running his lineups. So yeah, I might be moving towards Glenn Rivers getting fired too.
I got another name that I want to drop here.
Yeah.
I mean, the star of Monday, May 16th himself, Patrick Beverley. Wouldn't he be a great fit for the Sixers team? He would just fit perfectly. He would be totally I mean, everyone said this, right? Like in the last 5 years, if Pat Beverley's on your team, you love him, and if he's not, you hate him. He would flourish in that kind of environment here. Like he is like absolutely the kind of guy that has, I'm sure at some point been booed very loudly by the city. And if he were to become a Sixer, I'm sure he would be like, I love the city because of that. Like he absolutely strikes me as we use this term very cliche, very sports talk right to me, but he's a Philly guy. So I'm going to throw that out there. I think
he's a perfect fit for Philly.
He's a perfect fit. I think a dream at this point. I'm kind of thinking dream off season starts with Patrick Beverley. Like I don't know how many guys who are going to be readily available. Like, and obviously in the NBA, it's like the most fluid league in professional sports and probably the world at this point, right? But like NBA guys always become available randomly. But as of the people that I expect to be available right now, Patrick Beverley absolutely fits the mold of needing defense off the bench, energy off the bench, and maybe a little bit of attitude that the Sixers team clearly does not have.
Yeah. And you know what Pat Bev is going to do? He's gonna whoop Embiid's ass. And I think Embiid needs that. And we love him, but Embiid is and we don't have to do it because at this point, if you listen to sports talk anywhere, national, local, podcast, whatever, everyone's giving Embiid his the slack. I mean not the slack, the blame and that he deserves because he's not absolved from blame. Absolutely not. And I think he does need someone like a Pat Bev to get on his ass a bit. Max, I'm with you, though. I love Pat Bev. Real quick, Makai, I'm with Max here, man. And I've been the biggest Matisse Thybulle guy as long as possible. Like, really have. He's done. Like he's just done.
He's got to be gone. He's someone else's problem now.
It's almost like a mental thing. Like, he seemed so in his head in this playoffs. There was a spurt during the season. I can't remember it. He was shooting a little more, but at a certain point, you gotta stop expecting. It's almost like Ben Simmons, right? Where you're like, oh, next year. And then, right, by the time you get to year 3 or year 4, you kind of got to step back and be like, man, you can't teach an old dog a new trick. Anymore. Yeah. And I'm starting to get that feeling with Thybulle. I think you make a good point about Paul Reed. Something I will say, though, is I do think you got to sign a backup center. And I love Paul Reed. I think there is a possibility, though, where everyone's talking about small ball nowadays. You could run Paul Reed at a 4. I mean, Paul Reed has a 4 body. He has maybe less athletic than your average NBA 4, but he does have athleticism that a 4 may have.
Not to shit on one of the aforementioned guys that I criticize, but like I would rather play Paul Reed as a 4 with another year of development over George Niang in a playoff situation.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. So, and to that point, Max, you kicked it off with Pat Bev. My number one thing for improvement is go on the free agency market and just get some mean guys. Like just who cares how they play basketball? Like go find some mean guys. Like I don't have like go get the Morris.
Honestly, it's a great shout.
One of them will work good off the bench. Will work good.
Yeah, whichever one of them isn't a corpse of themselves, which I don't know. I don't know if that's is that Marcus?
Who's Morris in LA? Was decent in LA this year, man. When Paul George was out for a while, he was There was definitely nights where he was the de facto Paul George. I mean, he's obviously you can't expect that from a guy like him every single night, but I mean, it's not really a comparison this year because one of them got to have number one option guy minutes, and the other one got cheap shotted by the MVP and missed 4 months. So, but I do think either of the Morris twins would be a good start, and they're both Philly guys, so I'm sure you could maybe reel them in a little easier compared to other suitors.
Really quick, as I have free agents pulled up, a few names that stand out to me that are all going to be like clearly no max guys here. I guess what I'm trying to say. Yusuf Nurkic, good backup. Ibaka, why not get Serge Ibaka?
Ibaka's kind of washed.
Kyle, yeah, you're right. He is kind of washed, but the way he plays, I feel like he can play 8 minutes in the playoffs even next year. Yeah, Kyle Anderson. I don't know what it would take to get him, but oh boy. Get me Kyle Anderson. What's that?
Slow motion?
He's not very athletic. He's not very. I would say this. I would say he's pretty comparable to Niang, but it's hard to be less athletic than Niang. So
I was gonna say, man, he's tougher than George Niang. Chris Boucher.
He's a much better handler of the ball and finisher close, I would say.
I mean, how nice would Chris Boucher be here? Bryn Forbes.
That would be honestly, that's like my perfect. If you could tell me anyone who'd be a perfect fit for a Embiid and like Paul Reed kind of floats between the 4 and the 5 guy, it would be Boucher. Boucher's got a nice 3-point shot. He's a hell of a rebounder. Dude averaged I think 7.5 rebounds a game and like a very, very solid 16 minutes a game. Like he played basically the exact same number of minutes every game, and more or less he got 7, 8, or 9 rebounds every single game. So he'd be a very welcome addition.
I would absolutely love Chris Boucher. And then I said Bryn Forbes, and I'd throw in Victor Oladipo and what was the last name? Mitchell Robinson. And I feel so I just rattled off 6 or 7 names there. And I really feel like all those names fit like a specific brand of basketball where it's like versatility, toughness, like no one who's going to set the world on fire. There's like Bryn Forbes is pretty good, but he's not going to do the Jordan Clarkson role that you mentioned, Max.
Yeah, he's not that capable, but
right. Which I also think that's a very tough.
I think if you put him in the Danny Green role, you would maybe see a little bit more offensive consistency, which I'm down for.
I could see that.
See a lot more and more youth. So I rattled off a few of those free agency names there. I really do think you need to get a big man, though. I don't want to do the Paul Reed song and dance. Love Paul Reed. Think he'd be effective, but you need another guy.
He's just not a 1-for-1 replacement with Embiid. It's like a really good example, cross-sport example, was the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman when Tyreek Hill was still there. Whenever Tyreek Hill was out, McCole Hardman was a position replacement for him. He just whatever Tyreek does, you just do that now, right? And when Embiid goes out, we do not have a coach at the level who's like, damn, how can I totally revamp my game plan and rotations and essentially my whole offensive and defensive philosophy around having to plan around my center being 6'10.5" as opposed to 7'2" and one of the best defensive players in the league. So, if you can get a guy like Boucher, who's a little bit closer to Embiid, like that's a lot less work on your coach. And granted, I hope my next coach is a little bit more adept than Doc Rivers is, but let's be honest, there's definitely a chance that he's back next year. And if you want to be a great team, you need to plan around everybody's shortcomings, not just the players.
Fellas, I can't. I've listened and talked so much Sixers crap. I need to take some time off. Honestly, I really need to take some time off.
No, they can't hurt you for another month. Once the draft comes back around, these wounds will be rehashed. But good night, Sixers. You are dead for the year.
Good night, Sixers. You're dead for the year. You were restless and did not go to bed
until next month.
Yeah, until next month. We'll have to get a whole off-season episode out of the way. But for now, fellas, talking about off-season and talking about one of the best. I mean, one of my personal favorite times of year.
Look at you, honestly. You're just lit up. You're my favorite.
Because I just remember doing this last year, and you guys just shitting on me and laughing at me, and me being, I'm pretty sure, 1 game off, maybe one.
You were
game
close.
Off. You
finished strong. You finished strong. We'll give you that.
Damn right, I did. And Makai, welcome on in, man. Officially, because the show doesn't get real until we talk about the Birds. It's just kind of, I feel like the coming of age here, the rite of passage where we do our Eagles season expectations, and it's everyone knows the rules. The opponents have been out for forever, but God forbid you do a record prediction until you see the weeks 1 through 18 schedule. Let's do it. We're gonna go to Makai. We got to get you out here and just throw you right into the wild. 17
okay
games on the docket, Kai. You don't have to go game by game, but I need a record prediction, and I want to hear, just a few of those games that jump out to you and some of your biggest picks. So, Makai, without further ado, take it away.
All right, so I'm looking at the schedule right now.
Just pull it up. Pull it up.
Let's see. 6. Let's see. All right. So out of the 17 games, could see 13-4. 13-4.
Wow.
13-4.
Talk about coming in hot.
This is the same guy who predicted the Heat in 5 last week.
I'm either taking 13-4 or 14-3. It's between them two.
What?
We have the third easiest schedule in the league.
I know. It feels like the easiest.
It is worth noting that.
So let me stop you right there, Makai. Just tell me your 4 losses.
My 4 losses.
Give us 2 guaranteed losses. 2 guaranteed ones, because
there's always going to be a Cowboys game. There's always going to be a Cowboys game. We haven't beat the Cowboys both times in a while, so I'm taking the Cowboys, the Titans,
good,
and maybe, just maybe, week 2 against the Vikings.
So so wait, from what I'm hearing is the Packers are penciling as a win for you.
Yeah, I'm penciling them. Who do the Packers have?
I don't know. You ever heard of Aaron Rodgers before, Makai?
Back-to-back MVP.
Who's he going to throw the ball to?
Alan Lazard and Carson Wentz college alum Christian Watson.
Exactly.
Listen, man. I never pick against the bad man. We for those who know, that's like my big thing. I love Aaron Rodgers, but
that's a primetime game too. No thanks.
It is a home primetime game, which does
bode well for the Eagles.
But dude, I'm not gonna, and you know me, Max. I expected to have the highest win total. Wow, Makai. Let me go to Max, and then we can kind of compare notes here. So, Max, what do we got?
I did want to open with, yes, these numbers are going to sound high because on paper the Eagles do have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. With that being said, things very rarely go as they will seem on the initial printed piece of paper or initial blog post that shows everything. With that said, I'm going to confidently say at least 11, and I can absolutely see 12. I can absolutely see 12-5. I think that the Eagles are in another really interesting spot where it's going to maybe kind of be the opposite of last year, where I think they're going to come out of the gates really, really hot. I think they have a very favorable schedule early on. I think after the first 4 weeks, you're probably looking at 3-1, maybe 2-2. And I think that, we kind of saw how this team played with confidence last year. I think they're going to go into their bye strong. But I think having the bye late really helped them last year. I think that having a bye early this year is not going to be super beneficial. I think that there is definitely kind of a gauntlet. I know this is going to sound weird, but Commanders at Colts, Packers, Titans, like that to me seems like the slip up in the season. I definitely don't love that stretch, but being able to end with the Giants twice, I don't know. I think that they'll piece together a solid enough season. I don't think it'll be as up and down as last year. But we always say Vegas knows best, and Vegas has the Eagles at 10.5, and I just don't know how you could.
What really?
That's
not the number I'm seeing.
What'd you see?
I'm seeing 8.5, Max.
8.5. Oh, okay. Well, maybe Vegas knows better than me. My apologies. I think that's a little bit of a miscue to put the same projection number as a team that overachieved last year, and I think it's pretty hard to argue that they haven't objectively gotten better since last year, right? So I feel confident in 11. I feel confident in 11. I can't tell you which ones will be the 5 losses. I do agree with Makai that it definitely feels like this will be another split the series with Dallas here. Now here's a fun hypothetical question. If we're gonna go 1-on-1 with Dallas this year, would you rather lose at home on Sunday Night Football in Week 6, or would you rather lose on Christmas Eve at Dallas in the middle of the day?
I'm expecting the loss.
Not what you expect. Would you rather? The Eagles lose at home in prime time, or would you rather have them lose at dinner time on Christmas Eve?
I'll take this one, and it's awful. I'd rather them lose dinner time on Christmas Eve, and for one reason, it's that I have them coming so hot out of the gate. And like I think going into the bye week, them beating Dallas, I got that at like putting them 5-1 or whatever on my record. So like my idea here is, you go into the bye week like on top of the world, you beat Dallas at home, and then hopefully by the time they lose to Dallas at the end of the year, you like at least have a playoff spot like in the crosshairs. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh man,
fair enough.
Oh shucks, and then it's also at home, right? You want to win that home one. It's like because that game 6 might mean a little more in a certain way, and I'll get to that in a second. We got wait, Makai, before we go to ET, Makai, what would you rather have?
I'd rather taking a loss on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a good question though. It's not. There's no right answer.
There's no right.
I don't want to go into the bye week with a loss, knowing I gotta wait another week to see the Eagles.
Yeah,
so I'd rather just lose. Rather just lose on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but and then they finish the season with the Saints and the Giants. So as I answer here, I want to pose a question for ET in the chat here because, like always, he's bringing his Philadelphia hate. He said the fandom is wild here about our win totals. Mr. Everett Terry, I don't know if you've checked the Eagles schedule. While I give my answer, I would love to see your win total for the Eagles in the chat here. I'm curious.
He's going to say 8.
Yeah, he's going to say like 8, which is
he's going to say 7 or 8.
And I want to give me your like guaranteed losses too, because I don't see it. Max, I'm right with you. Makai, I wish I was with you. Maybe like in my heart I am with you, but I've had to rein myself in these past couple of years, even though I've been right. But fellas, the biggest thing for me is they're going into the bye 5-1. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. I don't see a way they don't go into the bye 5-1 because to me it's this: you win your first 4 games. And then you're going to drop 1 to the Cardinals or the Cowboys. I don't know who. I'm not picking it out exactly, but you go to the bye 5-1. After the bye, you got Steelers, Texans, and the Commanders. You go 2-1 in that stretch. Plain and simple. You're going to beat Steelers, Texans, and the Commanders. It's probably you're going to drop either that Steelers or Commanders game, like just being realistic. So what does that bring me to? That's 7-2.
7.
I got 7-2. I got 7-2.
7-2. Yeah.
So then it's the Colts, Packers, Titans stretch, and I think you go 1-2 there. Once again, I'm not going to show you exactly how, but I think that's pretty fair. And that brings me to what, 8-3? I want to say 8-3. And that's where you head into the Giants, the Bears, the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Giants. And if you're 8-3, you only have 2 losses to end the season. And I like same thing here. Like I honestly think they can win all of those games, but we know the Eagles, we know how they roll. Between the Giants, Bears, Cowboys, Saints, and Giants again, I think they dropped 2 of those games. So that gives me a final record of 12-5. Like, fellas, it's just crazy. I feel like I got to that 12-5 very easily, and like I had to force those losses in there. Like, there's not.
I agree. A lot of their biggest games are at home this year. Like a lot of the good teams they play, they're either like Dallas is obviously a home and home situation. But Minnesota is at home week 2. I'm not convinced the Cardinals are a good team, but yes, the Cardinals would be. I'm sure, fair enough. The Colts were, by all definitions, average last year, so if you want to count that, feel free. But Packers and Titans are both home games. The Saints, who are kind of like a out of division rival with us, is also a home game. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of the big games are going to be in Philly this year, and I don't know.
And like, let's not forget how much better the Eagles are, right? Like this schedule last year, my win total would probably be high, but man, this is a better team. And I'm excited to get into like a full Eagles episode. We got, might be next week, might be the week after, because with the Phillies, they'll be doing their thing for a while. We got to get into the nitty gritty with this Birds team. It doesn't come down to the division this year is what I feel like, right? Like, what before we head out of here, just before we get to the Phillies, I want to pose this little side question to you. It's a 2-parter. 1, yes or no, do the Eagles win the division? And 2, what's their record in the division? So, and like, I don't know who's got it up first. Makai, you're searching. I'll go to Matt.
I got it. I can go first. Yes, the Eagles will win the division.
Hell yeah.
the NFC East. I think this will be the 20th year in a row where it won't have a repeat winner. No, excuse me, that's not until 2024. The last time the NFC East had repeat division winners were the Eagles in 2003 and 2004. Since then, has not had back-to-back division winners. So if you want to follow that trend, that means the Cowboys are out of contention, and I'll certainly take my chances with these Eagles over the Commanders with Carson Wentz, and the Giants with another, with new coaching and general management. And I think in the division, I think they go 4-2. I think we get the Giants twice, but I think we won one with Carson Wentz. I'll say this, we can retouch on this whenever it is. I believe it is, not week 3. It's like week 10.
Yeah, when they come
Washington
here.
Commanders at Philadelphia.
Prime time.
Hating it. I don't know. I do think the Commanders will maybe be a little spunkier than a lot of people predict them to be this year. I think they're kind of my dark horse pick for surprisingly spunky team.
That's actually a really good call out, because I think I might have said something like that last year, and they just didn't. They underperformed last year. That defense underperformed. Like, we forget how good that defense is on paper. And you're right, Max. That's not something to sniff at, which I've been doing, admittedly. Kai, what are you thinking? Because I'm with you, Max. I think yes, and 4-2. I mean, that's really it. If you go 4-2 in your division, the pieces should fall into place. Kai, what do we think?
I'm at the agree. Everything Max said. 4-2. We're winning the division.
Pays to go first.
Pretty simple.
There we go. All right, last topic here in the main event, fellas. It's been a tumultuous season, but I'm feeling like things are starting to even out. How about them Phils?
Every week, Josh.
A little trip to the West Coast. Better air. Just
they were one strike away from sweeping the Dodgers in 4 games, and they blew it. That's why I can't. That's why I refuse to buy in as hard as you were. Just so excited when we first brought up the Phillies, and I just cannot match that level of excitement because they did it. Like, they did the most Phillies thing ever, which is they bring the best team in their conference. I can never remember the goddamn baseball terms. They bring the best team in their conference to one strike of a 4-game sweep, and in the most classic Phillies fashion, they blow it. So
I hear you, man. I hear you. And
if this didn't happen, one last thing, if this didn't happen Sunday night, like if this was like on Thursday, I probably would be over it by now. But like, I was watching that game last night. You know how much I love my late night baseball, Josh. And it's been awesome to watch them over the last week because they have looked really good. The offense has been there. Bryce rightfully has been recognized as the best player in the NL for the last week. And it just would have been such a perfect way to end the weekend. And instead they Phillies did as hard as they could.
ET, by the way, ET got back late and said Eagles 9-8, Dolphins 10-7.
That's crazy.
We'll come back to that.
He's a Dolphins fan, to give you some context.
Yeah. ET, we'll get back to that one later. We'll get back to that one like week 5. We'll give it a little check-in on that. We check tape here. I'm not forgetting that. So first of all, by the way, Digits, you didn't even hear the question, and you literally you followed it. Yeah, you followed it to a T.
Oh, perfect.
Phillies West Coast road trip. Blip on the radar or sign of things to come. ET, Phillies are finally looking like who they're supposed to be, but they need another bullpen piece. He's exactly right about that. Max, you said it, but Kai, I want you to get your voice out here. I don't know if you've really been able to talk about the Phils too much. Exciting road trip here. What are you thinking? Is that a sign of things to come? Are they waking up, or is that kind of a blip on the radar? Is that more of an outlier?
I think it's a little bit of both, actually. I think it's a sign that they can do good, but then they're the Phillies. The Phillies always find a way to mess it up. They just find a way to mess it up. So I feel as though we need another pitching piece. I can't figure out the word. Baseball terms kill me, but I think that's what it is. We can do good. We just choose not to.
Yeah, Phillies are just choosing not to do good. Now, I'm not with you guys. I have been
buy in.
I've been uncharacteristically even keel throughout this beginning, and this week was exactly what I needed to see because they weren't doing it against Aaron Sanchez, who was like an 80 ERA of the Nationals. They were doing it against Walker Buehler. Yeah. They were doing it against, like, the Mariners are not a great team, but damn, they've got good pitching. Like, look at the numbers of all the pitchers that the Phillies raked against this last week. And aside from Tyler Anderson, I think his numbers were just like wrong. Like that guy's like a mediocre pitcher his whole career. He had like 2 ERA going against the Phillies. Dude, they did it against the Dodgers. They played against the Dodgers exactly the way this team was built. Like you two and ET said it in the comments here that they're not a good
the Dodgers 12-10 and 10-8, right? Yes. Or 2 of those game scores.
Exactly. And even the game they lost, like they held it together for as long as they could have. And it sucks, but a different way. The ball doesn't carry one way or the ball bounces another way, whatever. That was a game that they 100% should have won. And like you said, Max, it's disappointing that was the last thing. These Phillies are legit. I think these Phillies are absolutely legit. And I don't prey on injuries, but the Mets are starting to do it. Tyler McGill, tendonitis, which if you have been following the NL East for the last 20 years, tendonitis for a Mets pitcher usually ends in Tommy John. And no, I'm not wishing on Tyler McGill.
History has a strange way of repeating itself.
It does. I guess that's what I'm getting at here. And look, let me check the record. Are they at 500 exactly? I think they are.
The Phils?
Oh, they're one game.
17 to 18.
17 and 18. Yep.
Still one game under 500. We all got to remind ourselves this. It is still early. It's hard. It's the MLB. It's still early, man. They're just mashing. Bryce, I think, to me, is really the crown jewel, is that he's not lost anything early this season, Max. I called you out for saying Juan Soto was the best hitter in the division, which I think most people would agree with you. Like, as I've brought this up to multiple baseball
fans. You've been sleeping on that one. That's fucked up, Josh. There's multiple people. A couple of weeks, man.
I've brought it up to my friends, like, hey, what do you think about this? Because I've been thinking about it, and so far it has been Bryce. Listen, man, I think the Phillies are going to be fine. I do think they need a bullpen arm, but I think, this isn't a perfect world, right? Where I don't think that bullpen arm is going to come. You have to operate with the resources you're dealt between now and like the trade deadline. And I'm going to cut Girardi some slack, right? He isn't working with much, but I think it's glaringly obvious that Seranthony Dominguez needs to be getting Jeurys Familia's, I was going to say minutes, but innings. That basketball to baseball season transition is a bit odd.
It's tough.
Familia, all things considered, man, Familia has been impressive, right? Like, he's blown some games, but it's Jeurys freaking Familia, and he's old as hell. Like, that guy's not good. He's going to blow games. You should be happy with the production you get and not expect it. Like, Girardi saw Familia pitch 3 like good high leverage outings. It was like, well, he's our guy. Like, we're just gonna put him out there every time. And you can't do that, man. It's Seranthony Dominguez.
Pick a closer. I do hate that. Just pick a closer.
I roll with Knievel for now. And
if you went back to 2000, Josh, and you're the baseball guy here, out of the 21 teams that have won the World Series since 2000, will we say at least 18 to 19 of them have had elite closers?
Yeah.
Right? Like 100%. a single marked designated guy who is that perfect amount of psycho that you need in the last guy to pitch a baseball game for you. And the Phillies just haven't done it since they tried with Papelbon. It feels like since the Papelbon experiment failed, right. I literally cannot think of a truly designated, unquestioned Phillies closer. And they've tried other guys and none of them have caught on, but it would just be nice to have some kind of continuity there.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, aside from like Ranger Suarez for a cup of coffee, and Hector Neris had a good run, but I mean, oh my God, no, don't get me talking about Hector Neris. All things considered, though, just a quick check-in with everyone, as in you two even keel, right? You're not freaking out one way, you're not freaking out the other. You're still not buying in. I'm not. Like I'm in.
I'm slightly more optimistic about them than I was last time we spoke.
Oh.
If you think the Twins are trading Byron Buxton, text me your guy's number, brother, please.
Yeah. Listen, ET, I love these fake trades. I'll be honest, man, and I don't want to catch some stray bullets for this one. I don't think I'd say this honestly if Dinners was on here. I got no problem with Odubel Herrera right now, man. I think he's, let's take the off the field things and you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't take the off the field things.
He's still a bad person, but if other teams can employ bad people to do professional jobs, then this is the oldest story in sports. Absolutely. It wasn't bad enough for him to be blacklisted forever. You got to deal with it.
Yeah, speaking in a baseball vacuum, it goes back to what I said about this isn't a perfect world. You kind of got to play with what you have. I've been I don't want to use the word impressed, but satisfied with the Odubel production in center field. Fellas, that's going to do it for our main event. Jesus, like, talk about touching on all the sports.
I can't wait for these short episodes. No more Sixers talk. We're about the dog days of summer. I can't wait. I can't wait for short episodes.
Dude, a Phillies and Eagles offseason episode is calling my name right now. But we had to put the Sixers to bed every fucking year.
It's every year, man.
It's just the same.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, the 29 other fan podcasts go through the same things we do. Most of them don't even make it this far.
I disagree. I think the Sixers fandom is like a different kind of hell, but
no, that's true. It would suck to be a Kings fan, though. Could you imagine having to be like a Kings fan podcast and all you have to talk about for months is that? I mean, for years. Like, when do you think Kings fan podcasts are going to stop talking about how they traded away Tyrese Halliburton for Sabonis? Like, never. That's hell. That's hell, Josh.
That's hell. That's funny. That's funny. You know what I mean? Like, at least I feel like they can laugh about it because they've had nothing. We like take ourselves seriously. It's awful. Like, the Kings can't take themselves seriously. They probably get all excited about like, oh, De'Aaron Fox is a great game. Oh my goodness. Anyways, gents, let's move on real quick here. Let's finish it out with rapid fire because we actually got some fun NBA things to talk about here. Just, you know, a little run around the NBA playoffs here. A couple little topics. Four. What'd you say? Final four?
Final four is set.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So the big hot topic today, understandably so, we got to weigh in on it. It's CP3. Kai, I'm coming to you, man. You came up with this one. It's just plain and simple. Like, is this guy just like, is he sold out? Is he done? Is he just that choke artist? You know what I mean? Is that his legacy? I guess. So Kai, give it to me straight, man.
No, I love the CP3 slander. I'm here for it, but I feel as though that this will be his legacy. Not making. I'm not gonna say not making it to the finals because he did make it to the finals. Not winning when it's time for him to actually win. When it's time for Chris Paul to win the big games, he doesn't win them. He does not win the big games. It started from the first round. He shouldn't have won the 6 games with the Pelicans. The number 1 seed should not have won 6 games with the Pelicans. That should have been a 4-1, 4-0 sweep. This series, they shouldn't have did it. They shouldn't have lost this series against Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie with no center. No center. They had DeAndre Ayton. And then
they got Dwight Powell over there.
And then their internal problems with DeAndre Ayton is something totally different. He didn't even want to play the last game. And yes, Chris Paul, he's done. Yeah. I don't see him going. I don't see him doing too much of big things.
They just CP3's legacy.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to disagree, and you know, sticking with the theme of me being a lot older with you guys. When I never like played basketball seriously at any level, but like when I got to the age where I was like, hey, playing basketball is like a fun thing to do, and I should do this more often. Like, Chris Paul to me was like the easiest guy to emulate because he wasn't like a super great shooter. He was much more about handles and passing and being smart. And like, you know, I was a below average sized white kid on the court with a bunch of guys who, you know, play basketball for, you know, for the high school or for, you know, for local teams or whatever. So like I could never have the skill or like anything great. So like to me it was like all about being smart and enabling your teammates. And you know, when I was at that young impressionable middle school age, like that was when Chris Paul had just gotten to the league, and I'm sounding old as hell for saying this, but like, and he was someone who I was like, oh, I can play basketball like that. I can't be Kobe, I can't be LeBron, but I could be Chris Paul, right? Like in my pickup game fantasies. So it kind of sucks. I've always had a soft spot for Chris Paul, but I think that's a great comparison that we see on the screen from ET right now. Like Gary Payton will always be remembered in NBA lore because of how great of a player he was consistently throughout an extremely long career. But you can't talk about Gary Payton with all of his shortcomings, and it's even a little bit worse with Chris Paul because Chris Paul never had to compete against Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like Chris Paul never had to worry about Magic Johnson. Like, sure, Chris Paul ran into the Warriors, and you know, a couple of teams found themselves in the Warriors buzzsaw during their run, but like it's not like Chris Paul's being, you know, has been consistently gatekept by the same team or the same player for his whole career. Like, he's been in a bunch of different situations and he hasn't gotten it done when it matters. And that's kind of what it boils down to. Like, you know, sports talk kind of sucks now, but you know, it's a little bit too ring heavy, but on the same side of things, like objectively, he's had a lot of bad playoff meltdowns, and
it's true.
There's him and Glenn will always be intertwined in history, but they were made for each other.
Yeah, you can't look past any of that, and it's just a fact. I'll be honest, fellas, and I do think, he does deserve all this slander, but I think 10 years from now, right, when he's long retired and we look back on his career, I think we'll look a lot more fondly at Chris Paul than we are right now. I mean, that's a given, but I don't know. I don't think Chris Paul is going to be like the butt of any joke. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to get the 3-1 lead treatment, in my opinion. I and maybe this is me. Maybe I've always just liked Chris Paul, and I'm not even rushing to the guy's defense. Like, he's always choked, but for me, I give Chris Paul a lot of credit. He was never the guy who detracted and went into the super team, right? What was the closest? He had Lob City, which, let's be real, Lob City wasn't anything near an actual super team. Like, it was a really good team, but look, to me, man, Chris Paul is like an old head in a new generation, and I guess he was just an example of sometimes to beat the best, you got to join them, and it's just a damn shame that this is it for him. Like, I'm sure he'll be decent next year, but this was really his last dance as being point guard, Chris Paul. I err more on the side that he'll have more of a Ken Griffey, or not to that extent, or like a Dan Marino type memory. And not the extent of those guys, but those are just the two names that come to my mind of like.
I think Dan Marino's not the worst comparison.
Revered athletes who are objectively really good and they never won a ring. And that's always like a little like, haha, never won a ring, but you're more remembered for being like such a great guy and such a great player. So that's my 2 cents on CP3. He does deserve the slander, and it is recency, but I'm saying when the chips fall, it's going to be more positive. Fellas, moving right along here to the team that won, Luka and the Mavs. I think it's gonna be a fun series. You know what? No, I take that back, but I'll hold off my answer. So, Digis, I'll come back to you. Luka versus the Warriors, man. And I don't even want to say that. Like, I guess maybe Luka and Dinwiddie versus the Warriors. It's Luka versus the Warriors. What are you expecting? Like, do you think Luka is enough to throw a punch? Not figuratively throw a punch at the Warriors here. Or is this done and dusted?
I think maybe we can get Luka Magic for a game or maybe two, but I don't think the Warriors could have asked for a better matchup in the conference finals. Yep. I really don't. I mean, the Mavs' best lineups this year have been smaller, and we all know that plays right into the Warriors. Anytime the Warriors can comfortably play Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole together with Draymond on the floor and then not be overwhelmed by size or really by the other team's just like the other team's like superior athleticism, because Curry, Poole, and Clay are obviously all great shooters, but they're not they're definitely not high flyers. They're not the classic slasher types. They're not they do all their work outside the perimeter, and we've seen especially Steph and Clay in their previous finals appearances. Clay was obviously a better defender, but Steph you could take advantage of on defense. Steph's gotten better, Clay's gotten worse, so I'd say they're kind of on the same level overall defensively that we know these prime Warriors can be, but it just kind of feels like the Nuggets series again. Obviously, the Nuggets are frauds, and they had much worse roster. But I look at the Mavs and I look at the Warriors, and I'm like, damn, how can this team keep up with the Warriors? Like, if the Warriors don't, if they don't play like they did Game 5 in Memphis, I just don't. I see all the close games going to the Warriors.
Yeah, Kai, what are we thinking, man? It seems like there's a pretty good blueprint. Are you going against the grain here? You got any hope in Luka?
No, I'm not taking this one. I'll stick with the facts here, and I'm giving this series to the Warriors. It's statistically better. They have the better team. No, you can't sugarcoat it. The Warriors have the better team.
Well, people said, including myself, the Suns have the better team, but sometimes it's about having the better player. And look, that's what won the last series for them. I don't know about this one. I'm with you. I think the Warriors win it. I think they win it easily. I do want to call one shot, however, and I wish you could bet on something like this. Draymond Green will miss at least one game of the series from getting ejected or something like that.
Okay. Get it out now before a finals run. I wouldn't hate it.
I think so.
I don't see that one.
Let's see. You don't see the ejection?
No, I don't see a person he can pick a fight with on the Mavericks.
I think it's going to be Mr. Luka Doncic. I think the Draymond, Luka, I can see it now, man. Draymond on Luka all game. Luka has a game, maybe kicks out the leg or something like that. Draymond gets the foul. Oh my god! I feel like Luka is going to like. I think Draymond will do good defensively. I could see Draymond going crazy this series or something like that. So yeah, I'm calling my shot. Draymond will miss a game, and maybe that's the game that the Mavs steal or something like that. But yeah, I thought maybe someone would bite on that, but nothing. And finally, Celtics Heat. Plain simple.
Yeah.
Who do you give the advantage to and why? Kai, who do you got here?
Who do I? I don't know. This is a tough one. This is going to be another good series. I can't give it to just one team because they both have the depth, the defense. They got it all, both these teams. So it could go either way.
Gun to your head, man.
7 as well.
Gun to your head. Who's winning it, man?
Taking Miami.
Wow, really?
Taking Miami.
I
like the Celtics. I like the Celtics team, but I'm taking Miami.
All right. So look, Makai is 100% when he makes predictions based on the Miami Heat. So fade or tail accordingly. Digits, Celtics Heat. Who and why?
This is the sweating superhero meme where there's two buttons in front of you, and one of them says the Heat are not frauds, and the other one says cheer for the Boston Celtics.
My Celtics?
Your Celtics. And begrudgingly, I'm gonna have to press the Heat are not frauds button.
What?
I think experience is the overall determining factor here. I think this will be a really competitive series. I think it will not be very fun to watch at times, but I think this Heat core is still mostly the same one that went to the bubble finals, and they added PJ Tucker. And I think really a big advantage for the Heat will be coaching. Like Ime Udoka has been really good, but this is 15 years in the league with multiple titles versus first time in the conference finals. I think we're going to maybe see an Eric Spoelstra masterclass this series. I feel like the Heat, that's really been their biggest advantage all playoffs, right? Like, sure, they just outmanned the Hawks. In terms of talent, top end, I think the Sixers were comparable, but like we saw how much disparity the lower end of the bench brought versus and also coaching. And I do think the Celtics are definitely going to be the best team for them. Both teams are willing to play really slow, really grindy. The Celtics definitely have the best player in this series, in my opinion, with Jason Tatum. But he has been hot or cold. A lot of his bigger games have been on the back of super high number shot attempts. And I think Miami has been they're playing really confident. They're playing like a well-oiled machine, and I think they edge it out in 7 mostly ugly games.
Yeah, all right. I hear your logic there, and I'm with you both. I think it'll be a tough series. I'm going with the Celtics. Come on, guys.
Your Celtics. Maybe you have to.
Come on, Max. I like Makai. Like you picked the Heat last time. Clearly, you're high on the Heat, but Digits, man, you have been saying the Heat are frauds all.
I know, Josh. I told you, dude. I'm picking between the two worst possible scenarios for me.
I'm gonna go with the Celtics, man. The Heat are frauds. I think the Heat would have lost to anyone that wasn't the Sixers. You know what I mean? Like the Sixers are just too mentally weak, and even there, they almost beat the Heat there for a brief moment in time. I gotta go with the Celtics. That's my thing.
We've seen the Celtics be mentally weak. We've seen the Celtics be stupid at times, and the Heat are just they're smart and they're disciplined, and I think that's really maybe the key word is the Heat are disciplined, and we've seen the Celtics be slow.
Right. Look, no Middleton or not, they just beat the reigning champs, and Giannis looked lost at the end of that game. I gotta go with the Celtics in this series, and I just think the Celtics are gonna have too much scoring between Tatum and Brown, right? Like, I just don't see the Heat defense being able to work for the third series in a row. They were so good at taking Trae Young out of the game, and then they were so good at taking Joel Embiid out of the game in the closing minutes, at least, just facing him up. I just don't see how you're going to be able to take out Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, because the only way the Sixers won is when James Harden heated up. If a team has a second option against the Heat, I think they're going to have success. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Real quick before we head out of here, I don't want to take up too much time. I don't want any rhyme or reason. Real quick, 1-word answer. Who's winning the championship? Makai.
Warriors.
Max?
Warriors.
across the board. Warriors.
All right, good. Well, that means we know the Warriors won't win, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it means it's going to be my Celtics end up lifting.
The Sunday night football curse. Nice. Good job. Good job.
Yeah. Look, I don't want that to be the case, though. I'm rooting for the Warriors. That's going to wrap it up for us. We do have tap outs. Gentlemen, who's got a tap out? Makai, you never made a tap out before. Are you familiar?
No. What are tap outs?
You get a minute or so just to freestyle. Whatever's on your mind, sports or not, shout outs, recognitions, personal anecdotes.
Digits, you got one?
I don't have a shout out. No
you got one to go first, or are you drawing a blank too?
Mine's easy. It's just just want to show appreciation to everybody. Showed me birthday love. Had a great weekend with my friends, with my girl. So just thanks for everybody for 2027 was quite the eventful year for me. From May 15th, 2021 to May 15th, 2022 it was a very up and down 365 days. So it was cool to have like a full weekend to celebrate. Go out Saturday, birthday on Sunday kind of deal. So
there you go.
Thanks to everyone involved. Much love to everybody who reached out.
Big birthday. Sad as a digit. He's now an old man. Sorry, buddy. I'll be joining you one day, and you can make fun of me too.
All right. I can rent your little shore house for you and your buddies to go celebrate your graduation, Josh.
I forgot about that, man. What a silly laws we have in this country. Anyways, real quick, my tap out as I'm about to head out to Aldi immediately after this. Remember that plastic bag mandate or non-plastic?
Bring your own bag, dude, for everywhere. It's everywhere in the city. It's not just Aldi.
So, and that's what I'm saying. I have to, and I didn't air this on here because I didn't want to sound like a non-environmentalist. Like I really am an environmentalist, but also more importantly, I am selfish and I am cheap. And
it's inconvenient as shit.
It's inconvenient as shit. But I am taking a time out and I'm stepping back to say it's a pretty good idea. Because at this point in time, what was it, like a month ago where they got rid of all the bags?
Yeah,
I've had to buy probably 5 or 6 bags that are just taking up space now in my life, which it is objectively terrible. But now I'm kind of like, I already have the bags now. And now I'm like kind of getting used to it. And it's only been a month. So I will say bag mandate, absolutely terrible. Like at first, and I hate to say it because it's good for the environment. And I do appreciate that. But man, get your month out of the way, bitch and moan about it for the time, and then take a step back like myself and look at your weird bag of like 8 bags, which, at 22 years old, I didn't expect to already have that. But, City of Philadelphia said I have to, and, about to go to Aldi and reuse my own bag. So there you go. Bag mandate. I am doing a 180 on it. Pro bag mandate. Or is it a bag mandate or a lack thereof? I don't even know how to say it.
That's a good question.
Anyways.
I think it's a bag ban mandate. I think that's what it is.
Plastic bag ban mandate. That's too damn much.
There's got to be a shorter way to describe it, but I mean, that's the Latin definition.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Although, I don't know, man, it was actually physically painful for me to talk about the Sixers a little bit. It really, really picked up once we all had double-digit wins.
This is the slowest night ever. There's no sports on. Even the Phillies are off tonight. Just gonna go stare at my wall for a couple hours.
That's why I'm going grocery shopping. I don't want to do that. I got nothing else to do. I did bet on the Marlins though. Let's take a quick check before we're out of here. Marlins are up 4-1.
There you go. All right. Boy.
There's always something. Always something. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. And fellas, we are brought to you by My New Philly, where something's always new and everything's always Philly. Folks, we'll see you next week. Peace out.